Well, Nigeria has some of the most vibrant youth in the world. They form a large population of some of the most brilliant young people on earth. Now, the institutions that produce these great minds are suffering. For more than 5 months, university teachers across Nigeria have been on strike, and students, millions of young people, have had their education paused. And this is only one of Nigeria's current bitter realities. The whole country is not in a good state. Almost every Nigerian today is touched by the problems of governance. The future the country believes in so much is also facing dire times. Now, protests have been ongoing, and strike may come next if what the Nigeria Labour Congress has said is anything to go by. Is it high time Nigeria is shut down and redirected to betterment? Is it just yet another strike that change next to nothing? The questions are out there to be answered. Welcome to VSA. I'm Sulaiman. Well, the Nigeria Labour Congress is one of the strongest pressure groups in Nigeria, with millions of members across the country. An impending strike by the NLC is expected to wake the consciousness of the Nigerian government. Now, since 1999, the lecturer body called ASUU, otherwise Academic Staff Union of Universities, has been on strike 16 times, adding up to a cumulative 4 years and 4 months. Universities in Nigeria hardly rank among the best in the world, yet they produce some of the most brilliant people foreign universities have seen. Now, the reality is dire, and just as the country is struggling in the education sector, is also almost totally rendered comatose across every sector of the economy. Now, from the country's main source of income, the petroleum industry, to other areas of the economy, to security, the pointers to growth in any country are blinking red in Nigeria. Now, many citizens agree that it is high time the economy is shut down and the government understood the state of the nation. Nigeria has a history of protest and a sordid story of strike actions. Now, how significant and timely have they proven to be in the past? Will the Nigerian government finally move to answer the university teachers and solve Nigeria's problems? Now, the questions will be broken down by my guest today on the show. Joining me is Peter Esele. He's former president, Trade Union Congress, and Auwalu Yusuf Kiyawa, who is the acting Secretary General, Medical and Health Workers Union of Nigeria. I greet both of you and welcome you in the best of terms. Comrade, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to have you.
And Esele, good to see you. And I'm happy that we're smiling, but I know deep down in the heart of every Nigerian, you inclusive, the smiles are out of the way. But let's start with you, Peter. We've seen best of times. You're one of those beneficiaries of Nigerian universities here and outside outside the country now. And I know how pain this has been for you because we've read some other interviews you've granted so far. How do you feel? Did you expect it was going to get this long?
Well, Sulaiman, for me, I never expected that we were going to have it for this long. My expectation was that government would know that when you make an agreement, when you have an agreement, you go ahead and implement the agreement. Sometimes government talks about ASUU being unrealistic, but let's look at it. ASUU wanted 1.3 trillion. The focus of government is as if ASUU is always talking about their salaries or what they are.
Well, it looks like we're having a connection, a glitch there to Peter Esele. We'll try to do a reconnection, but quickly, let's go to Auwalu. Auwalu, good to see you, and thanks for your time. And as I asked Peter earlier, these protests, are they coming rather too late?
Thank you very much, Sulaiman. I think it is not too late. And let me start by appreciating the good mind and the good conscience of Nigerians who understand the movement of Nigerian Labour Congress. You can agree with me. I think the genesis of the arrest, more especially in the education sector, I can say it without mixing words. It is the failure from the federal government, because there was an agreement since 2015, which federal government decided to play game with it. And I can tell you, issue of education, if you take a look of other countries, meaning the development countries and other developed countries, they take issue of education with all seriousness. But in our own case, I think it is very unfortunate to inform, teeming Nigerians that government is not doing what it's supposed to do, and can even say government is not doing well, more especially in the education sector. And I can assure you that is the causes, or that is the genesis of the arrest, more especially in the working class family in the country.
You know, Auwalu, for many Nigerians, they thought that this government understands the importance of education, because once, for a very long time, this same government was in opposition. So they understood the need, or the needs of Nigerians. What do you think went wrong, to the extent that it looks as if no one seemed to be listening? Good to see that Peter is back. But quickly, Auwalu, let's take you on this before we go back to Peter.
Lebanon, I think you can agree with me. It is very, very unfortunate, the trend of Nigerian responses, more especially by our leaders. You can agree with me that from the president, Mr. President, down to, I think, the honorable members, meaning our people who are representing us at the National House Assembly, they were the beneficiaries of free education. They all benefited from free education, but nowadays, I think they are trying as much as they can to cut off that ladder. It is unacceptable, and we cannot agree, in totality to the collapse of the education sector in this country.
Peter, I come back to you. Sorry about that glitch. Good to see that you're back again.
Yeah.
Quickly here.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about the strike. No one expected that strike to be this long. 5 months and counting, Peter.
Because what I would term dereliction of duty. When you have, and then government not be accountable. Government just feel there are no consequences. And if government knows that there are consequences, they will be accountable. Now, as I was saying earlier before the glitch, 9%, about 9% of our budget is for education. And for you to have a functional educational system is between 26 to 30% of your annual budget. So what you expect from government, even if you say you are building infrastructure and what have you, if you don't have the right manpower, the right resources, who is going to maintain it? Education may not solve all of our problems, but show me a solution without education. What I expect for government to do, 1.3 trillion. How much is 1.3 trillion? We can't give you all at once. Why don't we spread it over a period of time? This agreement was made in 2009. We are in 2022, for God's sake. That's about 13 years. Even if we were giving 100 billion every year, that money would have been paid, our university system would have improved. And nobody's even thinking of the consequences. My dad used to tell me the most dangerous time in the life of any youth is between the age of 12 and 25. And now that is where not only we form, you consolidate. And after that, we only try to manage you. Now you have all the worlds at home, all students at home, millions of Nigerian youths at home, doing nothing, putting pressure on family back at home. That's one. Now you are looking at the economic nerve center. University itself is an economy of its own. You have real estate around universities. You have workers there whose productivity is low. Nobody is being paid. So the economy around university itself is nil. So when you have all of that, and here you have a government talking about we want to grow the economy. No, it's not going to work. Life is not a random walk. What you throw in is what you get. So the series of insecurity that we are having right now is also a failure of our leaders to educate the people and also to set a vision for this country to move forward. So what ASUU and Nigerian Labour...
Well, I think I think we've heard that much. We'll come back to you, Peter. And you know, Auwalu, Peter has said something quite important here. He's just pointed out the budget, which is very important here. 9%. That's well, an abysmal number. Still, the government has still not been able to make that work for the people. Peter, you're back. But before I go to Auwalu, let's wrap up this with Peter quickly here. Peter, you know, you've been a part of many industrial actions, and we've seen you in rallies. Do you think it does work in raising the government's consciousness, especially with regard to what the NLC and the Teachers Union, the University Teachers Union, is pushing?
He does work. You see, in the labor movement, we always say, "Another continua, Victoria Santa," which probably means we have to continue to talk. The reason why you have a labor movement is a pressure group. The labor movement is not an alternate government. No, it's a pressure group to let the government know this is what you have to do. And once the government understands this is what they have to do, in the interim, you may think it's not working, but I can assure you it's going to work. And also, it's also the right time to make the move because it's close to the next election. Election is 2023. So government knows that if they are not doing anything, it's going to be an issue for campaign in the next presidential election.
So I want to speak to us about the right time, because Peter has opened another angle. He said the timing is right.
Yeah, Sulaiman, I can agree with Peter. The timing is very, very right. And I can assure you there are so many steps which I believe if government did not respond to this one, there are almost 3 steps who are waiting. You know, I think maybe if government didn't respond to this protest, the next step is we'll go to 3-day warning national strike. And after which, if the government still fails to do something reasonable, then we'll go for a national you know, industrial action. After that, I think the next step, which I believe the NLC as well as the well-meaning Nigerian will do, will organize a general protest. That protest will include and will encompass every Nigerian, not only the workers, but the teaming as well as meaning Nigerian who will still come back to the street to ensure that we push government must do the needful.
Well, it looks very much like deja vu. I think I'll take this to Peter because we saw him a lot of times. I know you were also there, Auwalu, but a lot of people will remember the faces like that of Peter Esele. We saw the January 1 protest of 2014, and it's still one of the biggest and most notable in the history of Nigeria. Why has it looks as if Labour has failed to be proactive lately until just now?
Yes, I think on that score, I agree with you. That's why I use the word is better late than never. When we had that strike there, the fact was we knew what we were going after. And I think, yes, you may be right that the NSC should have moved earlier, but in fact, most times Labour Federation waits for affiliates. So it has to do with the affiliate coming on to report back to it. And the Labour Federation will also give allowances for negotiation. Unlike when we had the 2011 protest, which was the biggest ever, that was driven strictly by the center. So what you are going to have now is the NIC is going to take it off the hand of ASUU. So if government is not ready to listen to ASUU, NIC taking it over, and you are also likely going to have support from the Trade Union Congress. So you are going to have, in the long run, a total shutdown of the economy. And if that happens, then it makes it front, back, and center of the presidential election campaign.
So the way it's going now, Auwalu, let's talk more about, negotiation. And I know you're both experts in negotiation. And one would have thought that in on this matter, we saw three key ministries on this matter, two from Labor, the minister and the Minister of State, and one from Education. And for the first time in the history of Nigeria, three ministers couldn't resolve an issue in record time. Auwalu.
Well, Sulaiman, I think I really appreciate you for this very, very germane and important, question. Let me be honest with you. I think government is not sincere to address this issue. You can agree with me. There was a similar incidences as rightly pointed out by the senior comrade in, I think, 2011. But when government was serious to address the issue, I think it has been addressed. So engaging three ministers to handle this issue, I think it's just a game. Government is just trying to play a game to, Nigerian workers. And if you could remember, just last week, Mr. President has directed the Minister of Education to go and settle to the ASUU within 1 week, while according to Ngige, the minister demanded for 2 weeks. I can tell you, if government is serious to address this issue, it can be addressed within 24 hours. So I think engaging three ministers on this issue is just a game. To me, it's just a game. And all signs has been symbolized practically that government is not serious to address that issue once and for all.
And Peter, this is not to put you on any kind of collision course with the political class, but quite frankly, look at what's happening. Schools are on strike for 5 months, and the political leadership in the country are being seen almost on a monthly basis taking courses abroad. Notably, Nigeria's speaker is at the Kennedy School of Government in Harvard with photo ops. And of course, we've also seen a governor in southern Nigeria, partying with his son who's just graduated. And people are saying these are the children of ordinary Nigerians. Why is it that politicians are not truly keen about fixing the rot in the system, as highlighted by you looking at the paltry percentage budgeted for education?
Now, the first thing, there's no feedback mechanism. One of the things that our political leaders lack is there's no feedback mechanism. Now, my own child, for example, goes to school here, attends a school here, is in primary school, but is in private primary school. And then whatever happens in the school, he gets back to me. And then if there are any issues that I think that are unbecoming of the school, I have been to the school once or twice to report or to complain about certain things I don't like about it. But the Nigerian ministers, National Assembly members, presidents don't have any of their word. Up to 5% of public office holders, even though
well, I think we're having the glitch again. We really can't get you, Peter. We hope that we can sort this out. Auwalu, what Peter is saying, I hope he comes back. What Peter is saying is akin to talking about feedback mechanism that is within your roof. Your child who is in school should be able to be properly assessed by you, but we haven't actually seen that with our political class. But again, how can we make them, talking about these Nigerians, politicians, how can we make them turn around and start to look inward and make the system work?
Well, I think before I respond to that question, let me quickly, align myself with what Peter says. As you can also agree with me, the failure of feedback mechanism or checking mechanism system by our political leaders is affecting us seriously. That's why I think whenever there is issue, Mr. President will say he is shocked to hear that. So I think I can agree with him. Checkmating mechanism by the present administration to me is very, very poor. coming to, how we can address the issue, maybe to our political, elites, I think it is the responsibility of all Nigerians, me, you, and all Nigerians, that before we even go to the voting process, we must have, some agreement with these politicians. Time has come that we will try as much as we can to do away with vote buying. Time has come that we must do away with giving 5,000, 10 naira to vote for 10,000 to vote for a particular candidate. We are all witnessing the consequences. We are all also witnessing, the repercussions. So I think it is left for we Nigerians to start somewhere, and that somewhere is now. We should try as much as we can to drive to our conscience that whoever we wanted to elect as a leader, we must weigh him properly. Meaning, what is his history, what is his reputation, what he has done maybe in our community level, engagement maybe in terms of views, what is contribution to educational sector, and so on and so forth. So I think it is a responsibility of Nigerians to try as much as they can to vote a credible candidate that they believe can deliver their dreams and aspirations.
And let me jump in here. Okay, Peter is back, but quickly, Auwalu, let me jump in here. Two key things you've raised. You said something that we must question, that we must interrogate our leaders before they come on the saddle. That's more like a debate, culture, and also that will also move towards sensitizing the people so that they understand that vote buying or selling can actually steal away their future. Speak to us more about the bringing the debate culture, because we still see, just recently we were in Kenya where the presidential candidates were meant to come on a debate. Guess what? Just one man came, and those on the president's side refused to come speak, akin to what we've seen in Nigeria, Auwalu. Well, I think that's a freeze on that. Let me jump to Peter. Peter, good to see you back again. And, well, apologies, sometimes it does happen. But quickly here, we're looking at some of the key things that Auwalu raised. Auwalu is talking about having to interrogate these people. Before we lost the connection there with you, you were talking about a system whereby we can actually assess what's happening in schools if we have our wards or children in such schools. Speak to us more on that, and maybe you can also look at the debate culture, which Auwalu also spoke about.
Now, the first thing is, when you have your ward in a school and anything is happening to the teacher, to your ward, to the school, it becomes easier for you to intervene. Government lack that. And then the other aspect, irrespective of who become our president next year, there is one thing that you need to drive a society. You need what are called a political alternative. Once you have you need a political alternative, not alternative politics. There's a difference between political alternative and alternative politics. So what we have right now is alternative politics. From 1999 to date, that is what we've been practicing. That is why you don't have growth. We are not going to develop. What we are going to have is just hard up. We'll move 10 meters and we think we are moving forward. Then later we'll move 50 meters backward because we lack that political alternative. And what do I mean by political alternative? It is something that is built from down up, which very means it starts from the family unit. It has a value proposition and it has an ideological bend. But when you have political alternatives, and you have alternative politics. Alternative politics is where you tell the people what they want to hear. You come and you say one naira will be $1, or $1 will be 1 naira. That is what the people want to hear, but you are not telling them how you are going to do it. So you lack creative thinking, no critical thinking. But in political alternatives, there is critical thinking. So what we have, let me just juxtapose Donald Trump and Bush, for example. You know that whatever Trump did as president of America and whatever Bush did as president of America are similar because they have political alternative. There may be difference in personality, but there is no difference in the political alternative or the political ideology they are bringing to the fore. Now, let's bring that to Nigeria. You look at Obasanjo and you look at Jonathan. They are both in the same party, PDP. But they are not political alternatives. They are alternative politics because it's all about individual. Obasanjo do whatever he likes, he leaves. And Jonathan comes up and says, oh yeah, Adua comes up and says they have 7-point agenda. So when you do that, you are not going to grow. It's not systemic, it's not organic. But when you are coming and you say you have political alternative, education is our swan song. Whether it is Jonathan, whether it is Yaradua, whether it is Buhari, okay, let me use PDP for example, it will be same policy and same principle. But what you have now is that if Buhari leaves tomorrow, another APC man comes up, the English they are speaking now is that those who are interested now are talking about their own self, their own agenda. The 4 major political parties now, if you look at the agenda, it's all around themselves, all. So nobody's telling us what is the agenda of your party? What is the ideology of what are you going to do? What is your party doing about oil and gas? What is your party doing about security? What is your party saying about education? Once you don't have that, it becomes when the president wakes up in the morning, just imagine, I was embarrassed. For the president after 5 months, president comes up and says, Minister of Education, fix it in 2 weeks. Does that mean the president has not been getting a report? That is dereliction of duty. For the president to come up and say, Minister, 2 weeks, fix it. What has the president been doing in 5 months? For God's sake, this is our lecturers, these are professors. A PhD holder in Nigerian University earns less than 3 million naira a year. A PhD holder. I won't get that. In Uganda, do you know what a PhD holder earns? Over $2,000. So what are the incentives for the man to go and lecture? What are the incentives for him to be at his best?
You know, still on your alternative politics and political alternative, make sense for us. Why is it that before now it was almost impossible for some Nigerians to understand the fight of ASUU, to the extent that it got to a point that they made it look as if ASUU was the bad guy?
Yes, because of the alternative politics. If it is political alternative, it will be easier for Nigerians to know what was happening. But because it's alternative politics, they are not accountable. They think that, okay, at the end of the day, if I give you 5,000 naira, I give you 10,000 naira, you keep quiet. So what they said to the ordinary Nigerians, oh, Sulaiman is against me today because I'm from the north. Oh, Sulaiman is against me today because I'm a Christian, Sulaiman is a Muslim. So what that means is that Nigerians take their eyes off the ball and start looking at those parochial and primordial sentiments that only retard growth. So that is the alternative politics. It does not require critical thinking. It does not require it's a one-liner. So what they do is that they throw that around. Nobody talks about the competence, the quality, the commitment, and the competency of the person who wants to be president, who wants to be governor, who wants to be senator, who wants to be a member of the House of Reps. So alternative politics is they throw money to problems. They don't use brain to fix problems. That is why, take for example, how many years now have we privatized power? Where I live now, have not seen power for 3 days. Power has been privatized for almost 10 years now, from Jonathan administration to this current administration. If you are giving us 1,000 megawatts every year, by now we'll have 10,000 megawatts. That is what they call political alternative, which involves critical thinking. But because it's alternative politics they are playing, what they do is that they'll tell you, we'll bring in gas turbine. We are going to give money from CBN for people to buy meter. And at the end, nobody buys meter, nobody is accountable. That is alternative politics.
And I'm forced to ask this question of Peter before I come to Auwalu, because yes, I know we're talking about education. Now you're talking about power, because it has to also do with one of the arguments some have, brought in education, talking about privatization. Makes sense for us. I think it looks like I lost Peter there again. So Auwalu, some Nigerians we see in protest today have always protested. Some were part of protest against the military governments and now the civilian governments. And we have some new breed, young Nigerians who are now in the trenches, in the struggle with yourself and people like Peter. What does this speak of our country, Nigeria, just when you thought that things should be getting better with less and less agitation, and seeing some of these agitators in government, here we are again?
Well, thank you very much, Sulaiman. I think you have said, or rather observed, a very fundamental point in my opinion. Well, let me start by responding to the issue of, the coming of new generation into the system of struggle. You can agree with me if you take a look of struggle, more especially the labor struggle for the past 30 years. Whenever, if you tell somebody that you are a labor leader, that person will laugh at you because they are thinking maybe those people who are in labor cycle are mostly irresponsible persons. But nowadays, you can agree with me in labor, struggle. We have so many professors, we have so many PhDs, we have a lot of people with second degree, talk less of those who are with first degree. So I think, to me, labor has started witnessing a very paradigm, adjustment in terms of maybe, I think, maybe bringing development in, in the labor activities. Then coming to the issue of saying maybe finding people like us within the labor family, I think it will significantly help a lot in bringing a lot of changes in this country. You can also, maybe if you recollect when Peter was saying something about the issue of responses by the central labor organization in the country. Yeah, you can also agree with me that it was not late, but nowadays we approach or we handle labor issues scientifically. It's more of scientific rather than the previous approaches of, to use this word, maybe radical approaches. You can agree with me, the engagement of government by the labor centers, I think it is yielding a lot of positive results. Because if you talk about revenue generation, we have a lot of people who can, drive the economic process to a betterment. If you talk about legal action in labor cycle, we have a lot of people who can discuss perfectly better in legal matters. Likewise, if you talk about power and even health, we have a lot of people who are a labor family that can drive the process far better than the way it is now. So I think labor is now witnessing a lot of significant development in terms of having people young age and at whatever capacity that will drive the process to a better now.
Peter, looking at the history, looking at trajectory, the history of Nigeria so far, it would seem as if some of the big gains in our democracy, in our national life, are those that came as a result of the struggle of the labor or the TUC. For instance, you're also an expert in privatization. You just as an example, you made mention of the power sector, which the government has privatized, but it was only recently it came to light that the government was also giving some form of subvention to the power sector. So privatization and also subsidizing or giving monies that are not being monitored, CBN and the likes, how does it operate? Shouldn't that also be something that the education sector should have benefited if that was possible in the power sector?
You see, that's why I told you, that's why I'm going to lay emphasis on the fact of political alternative, because for you to understand how they play politics, why Nigerian leaders act the way they are, is for you to understand that the political alternatives and the alternative politics is what is at play. Now, if they are dealing with ASUU, for example, the tendency for there to be revenue, to be accountable, will be very high. If they are dealing with power, for example, power privatization or what have you, accountability is lower. The threshold for accountability is lower. If you tell ASUU you are going to get 400 billion, you know ASUU will follow you night and day to make sure they get their 400 billion and to make sure that the 400 billion is actually used for what it is made for. But if you are doing that in power, recently it came out now that the CBN is about to shut over 157 accounts. Why are they shutting down over 150 accounts? It's because CBN said the money that was paid into those accounts for meter were used for other matters. So does that mean there was no benchmark, there was no milestone before you pay that money in? So you see, there is lack of accountability. And that is why I call the alternative politics. You can put in as much money you want, you are not accountable to anybody. Now, you look at, just like what I want to talk about, labor going scientific, labor has always been ahead of the curve. The difference was labor had few avenues to get out what they want to say. The current governor of CBN and I were classmates in Wharton Business College. And that course was paid for by the movement. So people think that people who come, and I worked for another company when I was TUC president. TUC was not paying me salary. TUC was giving me stipend. My company was paying me, but I was happy doing it. So when you also have the young people coming up now, it's for us to let them know that, yes, you have to be the best of the best. In Pengasi, for example, you have to be very good in your place of work. Your employee, you as an employee, you must be the best that you can be to hold an office in Pengasi. And that is also what the labor movement is all about. We have competencies across the board. But political office holders, if we don't hold them accountable, and one of the ways to hold them accountable is starts from the family, one. Then the second aspect is we vote the right person. The third aspect is we defend our vote. Fourth, don't collect any money from anybody, because whatever you collect, if you collect 10,000 naira, just imagine you divide 10,000 naira times 4 years before you collect another 4,000 naira, another 10,000 naira for another 4 years. I'm looking at this pain that Nigeria is going through. To be frank with you, I'm equally also happy about the pain that Nigeria is going through. I look at the glass as half full rather than half empty, because growth comes as a result of pain. Today, everybody is mad. ASUU has been on strike for the past 5 months. Suddenly, the consciousness of the Nigerian people suddenly is alive. So why would these people be at home? So the pain of seeing our kids at home, that we are not doing anything about it, we know what is costing us, is now what is making everybody to support ASUU, that no, enough is enough, and the president is now giving directive that 2 weeks it should be sorted out.
So, Auwalu, what do we expect to see in the next few days? Because Nigerians have been pushed to the wall. Auwalu, I hope you can hear me. If you can, I'm asking, well, the 2 weeks is already a week gone, so we just have some few days. What do we expect to see from government, and should the government not be able to resolve this, what will be the next step of the labor union?
Well, I think, Sulaiman, my prayer, as well as the prayers of all well-meaning Nigerians, is to government to respond to this issue immediately. And our next line of action, I can tell you, I can beat my chest and tell you, the mother that didn't allow her son to sleep, that mother will not also sleep. This is what I can assure you. If government fails to address these issues squarely, we will continue pushing government to the level, to the wall, up to the moment that government must do the needful. This is our word, and this is our position.
And Peter, we saw opposition senators stage a walkout at the National Assembly. How important is this move to help in the current situation?
It's all about interest. Why are they walking out? They are suddenly walking out because the insecurity that has been in Katsina, the insecurity that the ordinary Nigerians have been facing in Borno, in Katsina, in Zamfara, in Sokoto, in Benue, is now at the doorstep in Abuja. So because that insecurity is in Abuja, that is why you're having senators walk out. Why did they not walk out all this while? Did they sit down to find out the budget of the military or the budget of the armed forces? What has it been used for? Who has been accountable? What has that money been used for? Nobody sat up to that. So that's why you see that I'm saying at the end of the day, whatever is happening is going to be in the best interest of the country. Why I'm using the word best interest, suddenly senators are now alive to their responsibility. That enough is enough. This insecurity has gone on for too long. They are only standing up now because they themselves are equally under threat. My appeal to government is, first of all, there is this parable in my place that when the tree falls on top of another tree, you first of all take the one up. My appeal to government right now is to ensure that the ASUU strike is brought to an end within, as directed by the president, within the next couple of days, and that is over. Then the president can face squarely the issue of insecurity, and then millions of Nigerian youths can be occupied in their various campuses and prepare to write exams. And then they can dream the dream of being master's degree holder, of seeing a brighter future for themselves. The president just needs to do that. And then he can face issue of security squarely, because that is a build-up to the 2023 election.
How does it come to you when you read that the DSS has warned Labour against staging a protest, vis-a-vis security situation in the country and the FCT?
I'm not surprised about that. It's the responsibility of DSS to always warn. DSS will always, even in my time, even as peaceful as we're going to lead the protest, we first of all go to DSS, we go to the police, we let everybody to be aware. It's their responsibility to march with protesters. That's what is done in any civilized world, to ensure that even the protesters have security. It's the responsibility of the state to provide security for protesters, because it's the right of Nigerians to protest. But let me also take you back a bit. The Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives just also informed Nigerians that the DSS reported gave 44 warnings, made 44 reports of the likely attack or the various likely attack and the various insecurity that is going to bedevil Abuja. No action was done. Nobody carried out any action. So in a society where things work, somebody's head will be rolling by now. Who failed to act on this intelligence report? So those are the things. So for me, hearing that DSS is doing their job of not wanting anybody to protest, but it's also DSS responsibility to ensure that the Constitution has given us right to protest, the DSS and the police, to ensure that everybody protest under the ambit of the law, and security is also provided so that things don't get out of hands.
So, Auwalu, so we're looking at a 3-day warning strike should nothing happen, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, as I said, and also pronounced by the president of Nigeria Labour Congress, I think if nothing is being done by the federal government, I think we'll go for a 3-day warning strike, after which, if government also fails to address the issue, then national, industrial action will surface in the country entirely. And I can assure you that one is a decision of National Executive Council meeting, which is the highest organ of, second highest organ of the Congress. So I think we look forward, as rightly pleaded by the senior comrade, Mr. President should do everything possible to ensure that he addresses this issue in a very good time to abut, what will happen in terms of industrial disharmony in the country. I think he has said well, and I am also trying to join myself with him in praying to Mr. President to, as a matter of urgency and as a matter of necessity, to try as much as he can to ensure that the issue of ASUU is being addressed or settled in a very good time as pronounced by him.
So, Auwalu, what we're saying now is not a strike, it's a rally, and comprising who?
Yeah, this is a national protest and rally comprising all the family or all the athletes union of Nigeria Labour Congress. I can tell you that about 42 athletes, registered athlete union of Nigeria Labour Congress joined this rally. And when it comes to issue of industrial action, I assure you that the response will be much, much higher than what we have seen today.
And quickly, you know, some of the other things that Nigerians would love to know is what's really changed. Peter, you're back. What has changed in the way Labour interacts with the government, you know, from what it was in the past? Because everything changes. So one would have thought that by now there's some key things that you may have observed in Labour, even though you're out from active unionism.
Well, I think what has changed is it has to do with style, but Labour remains Labour. Just like what I told you before about political alternative and alternative politics. I don't need to be president of NSC. I know I can from my house, know everything that Comrade President Ayuba Waba is going to do. That is why it is a political alternative. I'm no longer Pengasi president, but when issues affect oil and gas, I know what the president of Pengassin is going to do. It doesn't change. So what you have right now is still the same process. There are processes that it has to go through. I want to just make reference to 45, but I can assure you that when the strike is finally called, it's going to be about 67. I already know, I can tell you categorically that TUC will go along in solidarity too. So what you have is you are going to have, and when TUC comes along, that means the aircraft engineers are going to be part of it. They already have issues already. The aviation, senior staff in the aviation industry are going to be part of it. And the senior staff in the oil and gas are going to be part of it. So what you have is that you're going to have a complete shutdown. That's why I'm also using this medium to appeal to the president to bring that down, to make sure that ASUU's issue is closed. And once that is closed, it takes away substantial amount of problems also bedeviling this administration is inactivity, inability to act, and let the president show that actually is in charge. If he's in charge, I think ASUU's problem should be something that in another 48 hours, I don't really see this as an issue. You can't.
And Peter, is it safe to say the president has been very lucky because he seemed to have had some quiet moments with the labor union until now?
Yes, I would say that. I've had conversations too with presidents, and we've all had that conversation. This president has been very lucky, and the president has been lucky in the sense that the way Labour is looking at it, Labour is also looking at the country that is very fragile. I will tell you categorically, at the very apex, at the very top, president, general secretaries, they don't think just like those at the bottom. No. President and general secretary not only think for the movement, they think for the country. They think about the country. If I tell you what the other side of it of 2011, myself and Abdul Wahid Umar, there are certain things we had to do. If we hadn't done it, things would have gone south. Yes, people will come and abuse you as president, but you have to see what is to come and then you have to avert it. So what Ayuba Waba and Quadro Laleye, who just stepped up now as TUC president, have been doing, and their various general secretaries, is looking at the country from a composite perspective. On the surface, you may think they are not doing anything. I can tell you, Ayuba has been attending several meetings in the night. Both presidents, several consultations going on in the night. And when you see labor leaders or Ayuba coming up, holding the microphone, and is upset, you will know that several of those midnight meetings have come to nullity. And then he has no choice than to walk this road. No president actually enjoys strikes. But when you have no choice, you just have to walk the road.
Let's understand something. I'll come back to you, Peter. We're closing. The life of a unionist, Auwalu, because listening to Peter saying that, look, he gets just a stipend. It's a life of sacrifice. Let us in on the life of a unionist who pushes for the overall good of a country and more even for its members.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think what he has said is very, very true. And let me maybe add it to this. You know, union is about complaint. If there is no complaint, there is no union. So
Yeah.
I think union leaders must prepare to resist, to endure, to handle complaints. Without complaint, I believe there will be no union. And coming to what he has said, maybe in respect of the leadership of the Congress as well as the new, because we are just witnessing the new leadership which was just stepped in, I think, last week of the Trade Union Congress. I can tell you that these two labor centers, they are very, very unique, and they have a very, very mutual understanding. And whatever they are doing, I think they are doing it basically because of the welfare and the well-being of our members as well as Nigerians. Let me tell you, labor is not about members alone, because we are stakeholders, we are part and parcels of government of government. So whatever policies, whatever steps government is trying to take, I think labor is part of it. That's why when this issue of 5-month strike of ASUU comes up, I think labor decided to come in. So people are saying maybe NLC went on solidarity. I can tell you it's not a solidarity. It's not a solidarity protest. It's not a solidarity rally, because all the affected 5 affiliates unions in the education sector are affiliates of Nigeria Labour Congress. So anything that involves 1, 2, 3 union, I think is the total affair of the Labour Center, and that is what is happening today. And I can tell you, I can also assure you that union or labor leaders will continue doing everything possible to ensure that this problem or this issue of ASUU is addressed once and for all. God grace, inshallah.
Well, inshallah. Thank you, Auwalu. Let's close with Peter. The life of a union is the life of a comrade. How do you spot these great minds to push on behalf of the common good?
Yes, it's inborn. It's something you grow up with, and then you also go through some difficulty. For me, I never dreamt of being Pengassin president or TUC president. I think a lot of people in my family were all surprised. But something happened along the way. I was working for an oil company, and my boss was fired. And when I looked at what he was going home with, and I wasn't happy at all. We didn't have Pengassin then, but we were well paid. We were fine. We were good. But when I saw what my boss, I walked up to my white boss, and I said, "Why will you pay him that? That's too small." And he said, "It's none of your business. It's a management staff." So I quickly had to talk to the other guys, and I said, "Guy, there's this pidgin English in Warri that when the rain falls on the house of a goat today, also know that same rain will fall. If you are a hen, it's going to also fall in your house tomorrow." And that was how I had to, myself and a couple of guys mobilized to be members of Pengassin. And Pengassin turned my life around. Without me being just an ordinary member, I didn't have to be president of Pengassin to change my life. Pengassin looked at my pay and my wage. I thought it was okay. And the Pengassin went ahead and made sure it was increased by 50%. And I was over the moon. And then that I feel I owe Pengassin. Even to tomorrow, I'm no longer president of Pengassin, but I would eternally be grateful to Pengassin for that. And one thing led to another, and some presidents and some secretaries, some national officers discovered me and said, "No, you have to run for an office." And that was it. So at the end of the day, you find out that it's an opportunity for you to be of service, and it opens you up to yourself. There are certain qualities I never knew I have. There are certain abilities I never knew that was resident in me. So labor opened it up. And so for the labor movement, it's a time for you to sacrifice, but it's also very, very beneficial, it's uplifting, and it is good for the soul.
Well, it's a fine place for us to leave it. I'd like to say thank you both for your service, Comrade Peter Esele and Auwalu Yusuf Kiyawa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
It's a wrap on the show. I'm Sulaiman. I'll see you again.